Hello, everyone. So, welcome to the first episode of Roll for Opinion. This is a podcast that's all about TTRPGs and fantasy topics. And I'm your co-host Gaby,
And I'm Kayden Kai.
my other co-host. Again, this podcast is kind of just us talking about stuff about TTRPG gaming, fantasy, and we're thinking of just doing reviews, stuff that we like mechanics, things we don't like, what's in the news, right? What's all the gossip, the tea about TTRPGs? Today specifically, we will be talking about a little known indie RPG called Daggerheart. Right here, this beautiful book. It's great, amazing, beautiful looking book. It's a good game. Kayden and I have played a couple of games, one shots. Kayden's DM'd it before. And we will be giving out our thoughts and our critique on the game itself. So yeah, what do you think, Kayden?
I like it. I mean,
Nice.
I'm a fan. This is going to be the system I switch to momentarily as my main go-to for games. That was the plan. Kind of move away from D&D, but I'm already exploring tons of other systems as we speak.
Yeah. So kind of like as a brief spiel, I can say a little bit about myself and then I'll bounce it back at you. But I am the young one here in this duo. So I've been playing TTRPGs for about 5 years, but I've really been DMing for 3 of those. I would say after the second year of being in the scene, that's when I really got into it. And that's also kind of when I started realizing things I like and don't like about Dungeons and Dragons, because that's like the main game that everybody gets into. And that's kind of what started me this journey of like, okay, what else is out there? And then I heard of Daggerheart, obviously because of Critical Role. I was like, oh wow, this is a good system. And then I've been digging it so far. We'll talk a little bit more about it later. But what about you, Kayden? How long have you been playing TTRPGs?
Since 2006. So
Damn.
that's 20 years now. I think we've hit the 20-year mark. Even
20 years, yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, not straight through. It took a couple years here, off here and there. Because especially before the pandemic and all the online stuff, and before that, it's kind of hard to find people in person unless you've been playing with them for a while. So, and with the internet, it just boomed. But before that, it was just like a few here, a few there, and you run into a group and you stick together for a while because you might not find another one.
Exactly, yeah.
And the whole experience was different. It's changed a lot since pen and paper to this.
Yeah, I feel like the pandemic had a little bit of a role to play in that whole thing as well, because everybody started moving into virtual things.
Yeah.
There's
some things I don't miss, honestly. There's some things I don't miss, and there's some things I do. It's got its good and bad.
Yeah, for sure. How long, in those 20 years, have you been DMing from the very offset, or did you start off as a player?
I started off as a player, and I was the worst player. Like, all I knew was video games. So yes. I didn't know, I was like, oh, like an RPG game, get XP, level up. So I tried to game this whole adventure that my cousin made for me. And it was like, I just want to go to the Coliseum and we're going to earn XP fighting orcs in the gladiator pits, and I killed the whole story. There was no narrative because I was just kind of wanting a power game. And eventually we all got bored of it because I did it wrong. There is a wrong way to do it.
You killed the fun. No. I think that's really common though with a lot of people who get into the game for the first time. I know it was also for me. It was kind of like instead of just enjoying role playing, I was more so like I gotta maximize my build. I gotta build the best possible character that's gonna shred through combat, and then that's kind of not fun.
Yeah.
That's so yeah. Okay. But that's and then a kind of like a follow-up question to that is, having Daggerheart is about to have its first year anniversary, probably by the time this podcast comes out. We're not sure yet. So it's only been out for one year. So before that, that's a whole 19 years that you've been playing mostly D&D, I'm assuming. So what led to kind of like the switch up?
Okay. Okay, there's a lot. There's a lot to unpack here, but I'm
Yeah,
gonna try and make it brief.
go
A
off.
couple of things. It was just it started before I knew it started. So I ran a campaign to level 20, and that's when I saw all the flaws with 5e that I didn't see before. Because once I got the levels got higher and higher and higher, and everybody at my table got more and more bored. I'm like, damn, we got to start a new campaign. It ended with a fight with Vecna, and it was so underwhelming. And I'm thinking like I could have done it better, but I wasn't experienced with 5e at that point. I was an experienced DM, so I knew how to kind of like work the room and play the table and play up the drama, but the mechanics weren't matching the vibe. And I tried to go by
For sure.
the book, with the encounter, and it just didn't work out. So I that I knew was a major flaw, but I kept playing 5e anyways. And then combat dragged in every other game. So the
Yeah.
combat dragging kind of steered me away. And then Critical Role, I was like, I'm such a fan of Critical Role, and they came out with a system. At first, I was like, no, this is gonna suck, dude. I don't want anything to do with it. They said there's no initiative. I'm like, how are you gonna trust people to do this right? And I saw firsthand that it actually does work. Like I thought it was gonna be like people just like rushing over each other like they do in D&D conversations,
Yes,
and not
for
letting
sure. Yeah.
anybody else get a chance when they get excited. And I was like, it doesn't really play out like that. Maybe it just attracts a more mature player. I think that might be part of it too, or not a more mature player. That's undermining other players, like it or down talking other players. It's a different type of player.
Yeah.
Uh, so a different mind, it attracts a different mindset.
I do want to like add into that a bit too, because I agree. At the same kind of like, I haven't been DMing as long, obviously, but I did get to a point where I was like, man, the whole combat thing in 5e just sucks. It takes away from the immersion of the game. Like all of a sudden, you're building up this climactic moment, and it's like you see the drama, you feel the tension, the characters, everybody's nervous, and then you go into combat, and now you're rolling for initiative, and then you're going turn by turn, and if you have too many adversaries or if you have too many players on the table, everybody's like, I have to wait for my turn and I can just like sit. And sure, maybe you might want to have like a conversation, but that also kind of kills the immersion of the story. It's like now we're talking about baseball while we wait for our turns. Um, and so then Daggerheart came out. At the time, I actually was not into Critical Role. So I came into the D&D session. I would have to say during Critical Role's peak, and I am the type of person to be like, they're too mainstream. I don't like them. So I take that back because I've been listening to Campaign 4 right now, and it's absolutely fantastic. Shout out to Brennan. But now I see the system and I'm like, okay, let's read into it, and then I see like just like you said, it's like, oh my god, there's no initiative. This sounds pretty cool. And instead of initiative, they have a whole different mechanic, which is like the spotlight. And depending on what the players roll and how much of a certain type of income the DM has, which in this case is called fear, the DM can control the landscape of this fight and interrupt players, and players can react to it. And I thought that was brilliant. But I was worried, like you said, you were trying to say like, no, I don't want to, make it seem like it's meant for a more mature player. And when I read it, I was worried, and this is out to people who haven't played Daggerheart yet. If you're hesitant about it, maybe this is one reason for it. It's like it's because you feel like, so I have to bounce my initiative with another player who I potentially may or may not know, right? It sounds like a lot of role playing. It sounds like a lot of conversations that need to be had. It can be tricky, but let me tell you that when it works, oh my god, it is.
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. Like it just flows, the combat goes smoothly, and it's quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you agree with any of that, or is there something like you disagree with? What do you think?
No, absolutely. I agree with all of that. There's a few things I don't like about Daggerheart though, and I can't wait to get to that because I have so much good stuff to say, but there was so much stuff I could do without.
Yes.
I could do without.
Okay.
And there's this attitude of Daggerheart fans, like, you know, I go into the rooms where they all talk in the chat rooms and
The Discords and
Discord
everything, yeah.
servers and it's like a cult. I love the game. It's awesome. I have fun, but it's like a cult. You can't say anything bad with like, well, you just don't understand. That if you use it this way, that would be great. I'm like, dude, I know what you're saying, but what I'm saying is I don't need it. Like, everybody's gonna kill me when I say this. I don't like environments. I think as an experienced DM, I already have a way to organize my thoughts, and I really don't need to have to rethink it in a way where it fits into another stat block or another style of taking these notes. I can come up with features that I can apply to the situation I want it to apply to. I don't need a stat block to tell me maybe these 5 guys come in and this falls from the sky. And now I have to write all that in a stat block when I'm really just writing notes, and that just is in my notes. And then I have a list of adversaries that I'm going to use that session, or maybe not. I never need the environment gives me a whole new way to think about it, and I have to retrain my brain to do that. I feel like that's more work than just continuing on the way I do it, just with different mechanics.
Yeah, no, I have some disagreements with that a little bit, but we can get there in a bit. I did want to ask you before we kind of delved more into what we liked, what we didn't like, just so the audience kind of knows what's your experience been with Daggerheart? Like, have you, as a player, as a GM, one shots, multiple long campaigns? What is it?
Oh, a lot now. I'm doing a lot. I've run one shot adventure like 3 or 4 times that I had rewritten for D&D and Vagabond now, as you know. I've got this as my go-to like dungeon to just throw at different systems because I got it memorized, and I can just find things that match it in that system. And it doesn't play that great in Daggerheart. It was fun like the first time because we were all excited about the game, but it doesn't play that great. But it made me learn a lot. I have another one shot that I've run a couple times, and that's another adaptation that I wrote for D&D, and then I adapted it to Daggerheart, and then I have ongoing campaigns. I've got one Age of Umbra campaign that's for the foreseeable future that'll be going, and the one we did together, and then I played in a Daggerheart one shot.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so similar to me, I haven't GM'd it yet. I've been kind of like playing a lot of games to get familiar with the system, so then I feel very comfortable with DMing. That's one thing about me is I'm the type of DM that preps way too much. Part of my prep process has now been, let me play like 10 games until I'm like, now I'm confident that I just know every rule off the top of my head. It's not healthy. Don't do that. But anyway, so I've played a few one shots as well. The campaign with you as well, and some of the one shots that you've run, I've been in as well. And I do kind of agree with you. Some of the stuff that we've played doesn't run the best. And that's kind of one of my main critiques of this whole thing. But before we get into that, I kind of just wanted to say, like, our experience with Daggerheart, so that people know that, at least in this podcast, we're going to be focusing on reviewing and talking about games, for the most part, that we've had experience with, right? This is not going to be one of those things where, like, I read an article about this game, or like, I looked through the rules and these are my thoughts on it. Unless it's like something that hasn't been released to the public yet, and we kind of just want to talk about it. But for the most part, when we do these reviews, we have played this game.
Yeah, and then if we talk about a game like that, we're just going to talk about the things we're excited to see. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm not going to critique anything. We're just going to talk about what I can't wait to read about it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So I guess I can start. We can start with the weaknesses of Daggerheart, since we're really like amped up to talk about it. And don't get us wrong, I think we both are on the same page. We do like this system. This game is great. It runs well. It does have a few things that it's kind of like, mm, not quite our cup of tea for this type of stuff. For me, um, this is, I guess, a difference in type of like what are you looking for as a player. But personally, for me, the biggest con for Daggerheart is I never once in any of the games that I've played, and this is not because of GMing or anything like that. I think it's core to the game. I have never once felt threatened or challenged the same way I would with probably D&D. It feels very, as at least this is coming as a player, it feels like it's very hard for me to, feel like my character is any form of threat. You can throw like 100 adversaries, right? That's not a great way to engineer a combat situation. But I feel like there are situations where you could flood me with enemies, and if we have a team of 4 people, like we are so powerful. Level 1, level 2, level 3. We have so many resources. You have armor slots, you have abilities that can like reduce damage, incoming damage. It's really hard to just kind of like as a player feel threatened. And maybe that's the plus side of Daggerheart, right? Maybe the idea is to give you this power fantasy and make you feel like an unstoppable superhero. I don't know. What do you think?
I had an opposite experience. I've had a hard time threatening with certain players, especially in our game when we did the Witherwild campaign.
Yeah.
Like it was more entertaining than threatening the combat. The combat was more
It's
fun and dynamic rather than oh shoot now this is serious.
yeah, yeah.
But I had a short series that was in my own homebrew world that I ran for a couple players that I played with before, and they were on death's door 2-3 sessions in a row to where I was like, oh my goodness, am I doing this wrong? Because I'm almost killing them constantly. And
Yeah.
I read in Right Knight to Fight. He has a
I
guide.
haven't heard of them.
It's on. Okay. You could see it on the Heart of Daggers marketplace. So okay. He has a guide, and he was one of the writers for Daggerheart, and he's got a guide on how to build combats and how to make them more dynamic. And going by that rather than what's in the book can make it more deadly. And that battle point system I found out is per short rest. So I kept filling up the whole battle points and using them, sometimes more, on these guys, and I was like, oh no, they weren't resting. It was one thing after another. It was scene to scene to scene, and and also the fear. I sometimes getting used to the system, I didn't know how to spend fear. I didn't know how to maneuver adversaries around the battlefield too. Either I'm starting them too far away, and I got to spend fear to move them in, and it's just I did not know how to set it up. So a lot of it is not. My players not feeling challenged. Sometimes a lot of it is me being new to the system. Now I feel like I could kind of dangle them on death's door if I want to. I've had the experience now where I feel like I can get
really
there. Yes.
Okay. Well, we have a one shot coming up, so I don't know. I want to see that. I want to feel the challenge. I've yet to feel it.
Absolutely. Bring a spare character. We'll put him in another room. Make it. But
I'll do that then.
All right, so what were we talking about again? Weaknesses?
So kind of like the cons of it. So you mentioned having a little bit of an issue with balancing at first between fear and hope. Just in case people aren't aware or familiar with how Daggerheart actually plays compared to something like D&D, Daggerheart uses a dual dice system where you roll 2d12s for your regular rolls instead of a d20. And one of them is a hope dice and the other one's a fear dice. Fear, when you roll with fear, the GM accumulates this sort of like capital known as fear, where they can now use this to empower their enemies or take away the momentum players have in a combat situation and put it on himself, right? So it's a very powerful form of mechanistic role play control, I would have to say. Hope, on the other hand, is very beneficial to the player. When you roll with hope, that basically means you gain a hope point. And hope is your again, the same type of situation with fear, and said hope is now your currency for you to empower your character, your abilities, and the things that you can do. And then obviously, if you roll above the check, you succeed. If you roll below the check, you fail. So it kind of adds, instead of just like, in Dungeons and Dragons, when you roll a d20, instead of just being like, you fail or you succeed, it adds 2 additional layers. So now you could succeed with hope, succeed with fear, fail with fear, fail with hope. More dynamic. And that's very different from a lot of games in general. So I think as a GM, it can be kind of like
I will say though,
to figure out.
it's not original because I was doing that back in it's a scaling of success, right? It's basically like you're scaling your success. Either you succeed really well, you succeed a little well, but not perfect, and you just succeed, and then you succeed. Oh, you fail, but nothing really too bad happened, and then you really fail. I was doing that with when I was DMing Pathfinder First Edition. Going by fives. If it was 5 above, it was really good. 10 above was amazing, and you describe how that went, and there was a benefit to it. And then if you go 5 below, maybe that's kind of different. Never mind.
It's a little different, right? Because at least in combat, something else that we didn't talk about is like if you're in the middle of combat and you roll with fear, even if you succeeded, the GM takes the spotlight, right? Like now the momentum is interrupted not randomly because of the way the dice rolled.
I love that. I have to say that's like one of my favorite parts is that it could change that what's happening can change with the roll of the dice.
It's more true in Daggerheart than in a lot of other games. I will say it is, as a player, it can be a bit frustrating. If let's say you're in a big group, it comes with the territory. But if you're in a big group and you're like, I'll go last, right? Like we've talked a little bit, and I was like, okay, I'll be the last person to go. You can actually be waiting there longer than you would be in D&D, because if you decide to go last, your players are going to go first. But then there could be a moment where somebody rolls with fear, goes to the GM. The GM could waste a fear to take the initiative, and it goes to the GM, right? And all of a sudden, instead of you waiting for 5 other players to go ahead of you, you're waiting for maybe what would be the equivalent of, 7 to 6, 7 to 8, something like that. If you're the last person to go, which I think is why it's very important that as a player, you keep in mind, you're not telling somebody to go before or after. Everybody's taking the turn at the same time, which means you can move around. You can do things that don't require a roll, and that's a lot. Abilities don't require a roll. That's something I think. There's certain other things. I know dashing does require a roll, so maybe don't do that one yet. But maybe like if you think like, okay, I'm gonna go last to take my action that requires a roll, like an attack action. But if you have an ability that you can trigger without having to roll, do that. Why not? Yeah. Everybody can do their whole thing at the same time. And that makes it so that you're still playing without having to wait for 5 other people to go.
Yeah, you can maneuver. That's like one of the biggest things. You don't have to roll to move up to close, right? Just within that, for D&D terms, within that 30 feet, you don't have to roll anything. Everybody can position themselves before anybody goes. And, say you're on the BBEG, the BBEG, you could.
Yes, the big bad.
Yeah, you could jump him. Everybody circle this guy, and then,
There you go.
But also, that what you were saying also brings me to another one of its weaknesses. I know we're talking about strengths now too. This is what
whatever you like. It's fine here.
I think this is a weakness of a lot of games. It's because they want to give people options, so you can get the combat you want or the adversary you want and the character you want. So they overload you with options, and I wish at least for the adversaries that was a little slimmer for Daggerheart,
mm-hmm.
Because that really cuts down time. The faster the turn gets over with, the more exciting the combat is. I mean, you want to have just enough options to where people are like, okay, I can do something really cool now. And I think they kind of nailed it with the cards and how you can only have
Yes.
so many in your loadout with the player characters. But some of the adversary stat blocks get kind of long and wordy when I didn't need that much to begin with. Just give me 3
Yeah,
things at the most. That's tops. That's for the biggest guys. You know?
I'm looking at some of these. Yeah, so like that, because I was gonna say for the players at least when I play my character, I don't have that many actual moves, which is kind of nice. You have I feel like you have just enough to make tactical decisions and feel empowered. It's a sweet spot. I think for adversaries, if anybody out there has a core rule book, I can't show it, but I'm looking at some of these stat blocks for some of the creatures that are tier 1. So tier 1 is like the most basic type of creature. It's the lowest tier, right? It's the easiest thing. These are paragraphs of abilities. Like there's one of them, like the construct has like 5 or 4 abilities I'm looking at right now. And it's like if you have that and then you have a bunch of other things, it's kind of like, oh, I'm getting kind of overloaded with things that I gotta keep track of and what I can do and what I can't do. Especially when you take into consideration some of these abilities are triggered by the amount of fear that you have or other things like there's another type of it's not HP, it's what was it? It was stress.
Yeah.
So some of these like okay, mark a stress. So instead now you gotta keep track of the creature's stress. You gotta keep track of the creature's HP. You gotta keep track of. Do some of these have armor classes? I haven't run. I'm trying to look at them. Oh, they got their damage thresholds. They don't have armor, but you could give armor to some of them. I'm assuming like if they were humanoid kind of player like characters. So now you keep track of that too. You keep track of their abilities, your own fear, and then all of a sudden, what was supposed to be kind of like an easy combat encounter for you to keep track of becomes a lot.
Yeah, and I'd also say like that's not a problem for if you're a high school student or a college kid on summer break and you've got all day to familiarize yourself with these things. Like, but if you're working like a full-time job or you have other hobbies and other interests on top of this, and you don't have a lot of time going into it, it's not as fast to prep as I would have hoped. I do like their motto with the whole thing is that they're trying to keep the cognitive load low.
Yeah.
I like that. You don't want it too low. You want to exercise your brain enough to where we don't expect everything done for us, and we can still exercise that creativity. But I don't think they hit the mark with that.
With not the adversaries, at least I feel like you don't have to worry as much about the players, right? Like you just let them do their own thing, and they kind of figure it out.
Yeah. And I didn't like the cards at first, but now I really do like the cards. I really do. Even with the people I play online, I wish they would just like you can just keep the cards out and refer to your cards, and then you know exactly what you can do. Go through
That's
that.
what I do.
That's your options.
Yep. Yeah, no, I like the cards. They just started selling. I don't know if you saw the individualized card packs. Now they're like, oh, you can buy them, and I thought that was nice.
Yeah, $25 though. I mean, slow down.
Oh man,
let me get it for 15. Can we do 15?
Yikes, 20. Hey, they're beautiful looking cards though. I can't lie about that.
I want to roll back, honestly, for me in TTRPGs in general. I want to roll back to smaller products, like you can go back to zines. Give me a core and then release everything else in zines. I'll subscribe to your zine if I really like the game. I'll buy all the ones I don't need, and we'll buy it in small chunks. I don't know if you heard of Old School Essentials, but they got like little things like the whole adventure is this little packet, and I could take up 4 or 5 hours with that. And
yeah, that's one of the ones I want to start running. I'm running Mothership on Friday, and I just bought like a one shot. I won't say which one it is because I'll talk about it on the next podcast. But I did buy a little one shot, and it's just a pamphlet. It's a pamphlet that you can open up, and you see the front, and then you see the back, and it's kind of like that's it. That's the whole thing. And then you, as a GM, can make the most out of it if you want to, or you can just run it as is and improvise on the fly. It depends on your style.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's great. Less is best, is what I've heard at times.
It honestly is, but I understand how this way of thinking came to be for the people that produce these things, right? Because you give us more toys to play with. As players, when I was a player, I mean, when I first started DMing, I was like, Pathfinder is awesome. First edition, it gave you hundreds of options. Still does. And the second edition is like, it's known for that. All these different options. And the book was like that, and I was like, but it didn't play out so well. I remember digging in that book, and this is before, you had a compendium at your fingertips where you could just type it in, and you're at the table and you're like, damn, I do not remember what that class's subclass feat or ability was for this, and you're digging around the book, and it slows everything down.
It does, yeah. Okay, so you mentioned earlier your deep dissatisfaction with, I believe it was, environments.
Yes.
Yes. So kind of like talk to us a little bit more about that. What's wrong with them?
I don't need them, first of all, but not only did I find them unnecessary, but now that they're there, the entirety of the fan base almost has latched onto them in a way where it's become an expectation. Like it's a player expectation. It's the DMs are expected. They feel as if they're expected to pack everything into an environment or an event, or like,
yeah.
It really is optional. It really is. It has no effect on the game if you leave them out. I've used them twice. When I just when there was something I liked in one and I was like, oh, I could port that into this scene right here, and that's literally all I used it for.
Okay.
I haven't built anything into an environment, and I don't want to. I sat there and I tried creating an environment. I was like, wow, this is a lot of typing. What am I doing here? When all I had to do was just scratch what I needed on a notepad, and it had the same effect.
Yeah. I have to say, I have not had any experiences with environments to the people listening. Environments, if you're not familiar, I have read about them. And this is, again, me being a hypocrite and saying like, oh, this is what I read. But basically, they also work on tiers, kind of like adversaries. And environments, kind of like adversaries, have their own like certain abilities, I guess you would say, like things that happen, triggers. And the only difference is that it is the environment, right? For example, you guys are in a giant mountain, like Mount Everest, and the environment hits you with a snowstorm, or it hits you with like icicles that jut out or something like that, or an avalanche. That would be an example of that. Now, that being said, I haven't played in any game that has incorporated them for me. So I haven't had the experience to know what it looks like as a player. As a GM who wants to run a Daggerheart campaign, that's probably the next thing I will be running after Mothership. I think this looks really fun. I'm kind of excited to run one of these places, or even just make my own. Like, I'm thinking of like, I'm really into horror, especially like biological type horror.
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, what if I were to make one of these environments that's kind of like the inside of a beast, right? Like it's like a massive giant type of worm or something that you have to go inside. And now I'm like, there's so much I could do with that. So cool. That's the first thing that came to mind. Yeah.
This is part of my gripe though. Like I feel like it's so cool to go do that and write down a little block, but it's also so cool to just play that out. I literally will just narrate that you're inside of a beast. I'll give okay. Due to the smell of the vial and the vapors in the bile and the vapors in the stomach, you have to give me a difficulty 14 strength roll or something like that. And if you don't, you're vulnerable until you clear the condition. And
yeah.
And I just come up with that on the fly. Maybe it's because I'm an experienced DM, but I'll just pull that out or I'll write it down on a note. And I didn't need an environment to tell me these things might happen. I know what's going to happen. I've planned for it, and I already planned for things that might happen just working out my sessions. I didn't maybe if I don't know. I think everything would be set up better if it was just scenes. Maybe just call it scenes rather than environments or something for me. That's how I write everything. I write everything out in scenes.
That's true though. Okay, so I like to play both sides sometimes. I see your point, right? Why do we need to define it? Why do we need to put it in a nice little box and write it all down and have it neatly organized and packaged? But at the same time, if you're a creator for Daggerheart and you're writing out your campaign, instead of having to write out or try to figure out how am I going to organize that the environment works this way while the while whoever's going to run this game for another person reads through it, because I don't want people to read my campaigns like a novella and have to read every detail for them to understand it. So maybe if you do have it like nicely organized in a little box and you put it there, somebody can just immediately look at it and be like, oh, okay, so that's how this all works.
I also think that it just gives it's like a jumble of ideas all in a box. When you're writing out a campaign, you're showing how those ideas play out.
Yeah.
But I mean, running out the environment is like, here, you do something with that, however you want to do it. This is what happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
I get that, and it's just not for me. And but what irks me about it is not that it's not for me, is that I can't say that it's not for me because the cult has spoken. You know what I mean?
Oh, the fandom and everything like that. Let's leave them out of them. This is what I say. We're talking about games, not people. I mean, to a certain extent, it is all about people, right? But I'm like, if the general fandom wants to play a game the way they want to, that's up to them.
Absolutely right. Absolutely.
That's up to them. Yeah, preach. Okay, so that's kind of environments. Let me see. I'm looking at my notes here to see if there's anything that I was like, oh, this is great, this is bad. Oh, I did want to bring this up. I wanted to know your thoughts. We talked about it already, the duality dice and the way they work. I was thinking to myself, sometimes there's like one of these 4 alternatives that is kind of awkward. And I believe it was like success with fear felt a bit weird, even as a player, because it feels like it's like a sour taste in your mouth. It's like I didn't really succeed because now I just gave my GM a fear, and then something bad happens on top of that too. I don't know. What are your thoughts, both as a player and as a GM?
I think, like, I get why everybody's like, that's a complaint I've heard about in other blog posts and stuff like that. Success with fear is like a challenge for some people to like wrap their head around. But, I mean, the way I think of it is like you just barely succeeded in what you're doing, and now this is the consequence of the near miss.
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes it's hard to narrate original ways to do that over and over again. Like I gotta
come up with it.
Yeah, I got a few go-tos. Like, if you succeed with fear, now you've drawn all the adversary's attention towards you. You are now the focus of their ire.
That's a good one.
And or you succeed with fear. You did it, but at a cost, mark stress. I think they tell you to do that in the core. If they
you can do that.
Fear, mark stress, and mark stress is like the go-to.
Yeah.
The first one shot I ran for Daggerheart was a very stressful environment. It was the whole thing was mark stress. Everything that happened.
Yeah. Oh, well, that explains a lot, because for players who don't know, if you fill up your stress bar, 1, you just got rid of one of your resources for some of your abilities. 2, every time you would take a stress hit, now you're taking an HP hit. Yes. And I believe that stress is one of those things that you can't really reduce damage on. So if you have an adversary that deals stress damage and your characters are already stressed out, that can be absolutely lethal.
Yeah, that's one of those mechanics that gets underplayed, I think, too. Like, I don't think people think of how critical that is. Like you said, it is it's fuel for a lot of abilities and character classes. The stress, you take that away, and now they're hindered. And then once you run out of stress, you're marking HP for anything that would cause you to mark a stress.
Yep, it's really deadly. Yeah.
While we're on the subject of what we liked and didn't like about Daggerheart, what did you like and didn't like about the Witherwild campaign?
Oh, that's right. So this is another thing for people who are not super familiar. There's pre-made campaign frames. Kayden ran for me and some other players the Witherwild campaign frame. I'm not gonna go into too many details, but basically, if you've ever seen the movie Princess Mononoke, Studio Ghibli movie, it's basically just that. Nature has been disrupted, it's becoming corrupted, and now you guys can either be part of nature, part of the city that corrupted nature, and you play a campaign in there. There you go. You don't need to know any more details about that. There's a faint divinities, whatever. What I liked about the Wither Wilds is the fact. I mean, there's a lot that I really liked. Comes with a map. I'm a fan of maps. I think anything that comes with a pre-made map and you can
Yep.
just look at it and be like, "Whoa, this looks cool." I always like that. But I'm not gonna give it too many brownie points for having a map. Mechanically, I think it's a simple campaign frame in terms of like the themes, the mechanics, the ideas behind it, right? Um, it's up to you as a GM to figure out what the end goal or hook is going to be. You can follow what the book tells you. Again, there's an inciting event that causes the forest to go crazy, and you as the GM can be like, okay, the party's role is going to be to fix the Witherwild curse, and that's as simple as that. And I think that's really good. That's a powerful tool for new GMs or for new players. It's not that threatening of an environment. The worst thing about it is that there is a mechanic where I think if you take it happened to my character actually on the first session. If you take damage from a corrupted creature, or like, if you take like severe damage from a corrupted creature, you have to roll like a d6 or something. And if you get like a 1, and every time you don't get a 1, it keeps stacking up, you'll get a corruption point. And basically, that just takes away one slot of your hope.
Which
A lot of
is
text.
that is a lot though.
It's
One slot of hope
it,
is a lot.
Well, you lose one hope. Yeah, it's a lot. And it played into our whole campaign of 6. It was a small campaign of 6 sessions. One time, and it was because I think the perfect set of rolls just happened, where you rolled enough for me to take severe, and I literally rolled a 1 in that d6, and then I just had to run the whole campaign with the -1 hope slot. It didn't feel that significant. So in terms of like unique mechanic to the campaign frames, because I noticed I looked through them, and a lot of them try to have like at least like 1 or 2 unique mechanics that make it stand out a bit. That wasn't that significant or important to me. I think as a theme, it's good, and I like that it's published and made. But that's pretty much most of it. I would say it's really beginner friendly. It's great to run it as a first time GM for this game, and I might try it. Um, but it's not outstanding, is what I would say.
Yeah, my favorite campaign frame they didn't even put in the book. I love the Sablewood. That is literally like I I want to play in that. The hybrid animals, the forest that the with the 100-foot tall trees. It's just
I
it's
I agree. The
fantastical.
Sablewood is I that was at the first time I played Daggerheart wasn't Sablewood, and I remember when the DM was like, "We're gonna do Sablewood," and I had the book, and I was like, I don't see it. Where is Sablewood? And it's like, no, he sends it to me. And I was like, oh, it's not even in the book. And this is fantastic. It's like it's a whole hybrid animal thing. If anybody out there listening is a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and they know of like those episodes where they had like hybrid animals, it was one of my favorite episodes. It's like the whole thing. It's like you have a whole forest filled with hybrid animals. I think one of them is like what a wolf owl or
Strixwolf.
something like that.
Strix.
Yeah, yeah, that's so fire.
It
That's
is.
so cool.
It is. They didn't put the Spider-Mander in there. I wanted a stat block for the Spider-Mander. They talk about a legendary Spider-Mander in there, and I've been
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
for more Sablewood stuff. While I've been scouring the internet. Maybe the creators of it might drop little nuggets for us somewhere in a thread, but nothing. I can't find anything on it.
No, I love that one. I would say it's also kind of like a very simple, easy to run campaign frame, which I'm always down for. I think simple and easy is really good for new players, new DMs. We need more of those to get people into the game. Um, but looking over, what do you think about the Witherwild? You as a GM who ran it.
I don't. I don't know. As a backdrop, I mean, I like it. It's okay. It's okay. I like the story that we played out.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the story that we played out. That was fun. But I don't the mechanics I find hard incorporating in when I'm already worried just about my own plot points and things going on. And then I know I could use that to highlight what's going on, but I'm also like using my story. Like I don't want to have to worry about another mechanic. So I don't think mechanics are a real when it comes to the campaign frames. I don't think the mechanics are a real draw for me. But
Mhm.
the small, like I feel like a lot of players would disagree with me. I mean, a lot of GMs would disagree with me, but I feel like the setting books are hurt more by the overabundance of material on them. You know, and I get frustrated when I can't find certain things about a thing, but it forces me to fill it in and use my own creativity and make it my own.
Wait, so you mean like you don't like the fact that there's already campaign frames in
No,
the
I
book?
do. I do like. So I like the campaign phrases. Is what I'm saying is I think that's the draw for me is that it's small and compact. There's
Okay.
not much to it. It's small and compact. It's enough for you. I could run a campaign off just what they give you off the campaign frame, and we will discover the rest. That's pretty
Yeah.
much all I need going in. And like especially new GMs, I don't expect any book to teach a new GM this. Like you said, you have trouble with prep,
Yeah.
like get over prepping. That is something everybody struggles with, like in the beginning or for years or forever. But I
Yeah.
think the you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that's the win. When you're in the seat and you're like, I have no clue what's gonna happen next. You don't, but you're not showing your hand, and the
Yeah.
player's got no clue either. And that's when you know you're doing a great job on it. And like all the prep in the world is not going to prepare you for those moments. You just got to get comfortable with those moments. So I feel
Yeah.
like
I mean,
less
there's
is
yeah.
more. Less is more.
I agree. No, yeah, there's definitely something about like you do make something up on the fly and it just changes the trajectory of the campaign entirely. And your players don't know that, and you kind of know the fact that wow, this is this is what TTRPG is in part is like collective storytelling.
Yes.
We just all came together and randomly made something that's going to keep and propel the story forward. And I think that's great. And I think the campaign frames, like you said, do a good job at being like compact enough and simple enough to do that. I think Age of Umbra, and that's because Critical Role ran it already. So I feel like they added that one in, being really well written. That Age of Umbra is like large. You're running it right now, so you can kind of talk about it. Because personally, I feel like this looks sick. This
Yes.
reads sick.
Yes.
I am a big fan of dark fantasy, like Dark Souls, Blasphemous, all those types of video games. I'm in love with. So I want to hear your thoughts on the Age of Umbra campaign. From how's that going? What do you like or don't like?
I'm running it like who's the bad guy. I don't even think the players. It's still beginning, so I don't think the players got onto it. But they're about to discover something, and it's going to lead them down this path of whether they want to or not. It's going to be in the background of the story. It's occurring now, so it's going to lead them down this path of was this one right or wrong? What
Yeah,
and I want that to be like the ultimate question, and maybe never resolve that. I think that's gonna be fun for me to leave it on a cliffhanger. Like you just, it has to be a matter of opinion. Also, I know he likes it really dark, gritty, gothic, and I'm kind of running it that way with the background music and the personal tragedies that I'm trying to bring incorporate into it.
yeah.
Um, but the way I would love to see it run ultimately is like 80s dark fantasy. Like I swear, like a little bit lighter in tone, but like that. Like, remember how creepy? I don't know if you remember the Dark Crystals from the 80s, the Skeksis.
Well, I wasn't alive, but I did see I saw the movie.
Yeah, those were creepy when I was a kid. And the old sounding dungeon synth, the
Oh, I
analog music. Like,
love that music. That music's great.
I would run it with that kind of vibe, that kind of feel, but just a little more mature. Not straight horror gothic.
Okay, yeah. That's dark synth, 80s type fantasy. That's how I'm running my current D&D campaign with some of my friends.
I love that. I love
And
that.
I think that's one of my favorite vibes ever. It's like when you're in a dark cave and you don't know anything, and like the creatures that can come up are like things that you've never even conceived, and it's like the most horrifying, ugly looking thing ever. And then it's just like a little wacky goblin in terms of personality. That's just fun. That's fun to me.
I'm noticing like a lot of different players, no matter what age they are really loving the 80s nostalgia vibe, and that's becoming more
Yeah,
and more popular among players. Maybe because of Stranger Things. I think it's a collection of things like, but it also I think it's keeping them there because they're being drawn back to a time before all this all this mess. Before things was,
Yes.
it was a bit. It wasn't that as simple as everybody thinks, but it was a bit simpler than the way the world is now. And with all the good that technology brings, it's also made things a lot more complicated and crazy and scary. And people just like want that vibe of hanging out with your buddies in a basement, rolling dice with pens and paper, and drawing on your
Yeah.
notebook, slowing stickers
Yeah.
on your composition book, and
Yeah. Minimalism. That's what people want. That's why I think, these old school revival games are kind of like taking off. And I know you're exploring a lot of
Mhm.
different game systems outside of D&D because you want to lower prep work.
Yes.
You want something that's easy to run. And I'm somebody who's kind of in the same boat of like, I want games that are quick, kind of self-running in a way where like the player can do the role and figure out if it's a success or not on their own. And then something I also like challenge. I like brutalism, where I want the player to feel like my character could die at any second. The stakes are high. I don't like when players feel so comfortable that they're like, I'm gonna stab the merchant in the village, and they're gonna try to arrest me, but I'll get away with it because this is a power fantasy, right? You're too powerful. Versus an OSR is kind of like if you do that, your character's done. That's it. There's no coming back.
I feel
If
like
you wanted to, right?
I feel like the tone has changed too. Like, you now just saying that, like you said something like I stabbed this merchant in this village, but someone's going to be after you. That was a thing that occurred a lot. I mean, when I first started playing D&D, maybe it was the people I was around, but a lot of morally questionable things occurred at the tabletop, and I had to show the players, rather than we're playing good guys, I had to show the players that the world's going to react poorly to
Yeah,
decisions like this. So there'd be a lot of players with warrants, a lot of
yeah.
a lot of blowback from things they did in the
Well,
last town.
it's normal, right? It's like the chaoticness of it. It's like I'm free. I can do whatever I want. I'm gonna be as
Yeah,
chaotic as I possibly can. And it's kind of like you as a GM, you can kind of allow that and be like, oh, all right, I guess you're doing it. And then they'll like sidetrack your entire story. Like again,
yeah,
you're trying to tell a story or like play with your friends. And if that's what you like, that's fine. But other times I'm kind of like I want players to understand that that in this world there's going to be real consequences within the fictitious world of your character doing things, right? So like, and also kind of like you have to kind of try to remind players sometimes, is that really what your guy would do? Like, your paladin of holy oath
yeah.
that fights for justice is gonna stand by and just let its party be like, let's ransack the village, or something like that. It's like there's gonna have to be a moral quandary to happen here, or something like that, right? And I think old school games, because they tend to be much more self-running and not super dense, open up a lot of room for this type of roleplay conversation between DM, the NPCs, and the players.
Yeah, but I think but that's here's the difference. Like we're coming at that from a new mindset. Like nowadays, I think it's like kind of people go into the game with the understanding they're playing heroes, and
Yeah,
back then it wasn't that wasn't the case. It was people went into the games with the brakes off. You got to see who people really were, because there wasn't this consensus that we're playing heroes. It was no, they were playing characters in a fantasy world, so they did whatever they wanted because it was a fantasy world, or they tried to until you put the brakes on them. And so there was
yeah,
a lot of more morally gray player characters 20, 30 years ago than there are now. Now it's overwhelmingly good, which I like. I kind of like that about the game. But take that back to the OSR. I don't think those I think that's one of the things they advertise in a lot of these OSR games is the morally gray world. I hear that morally gray. Morally gray is it's a catchphrase, it's a tagline
yeah,
that goes along with it. And yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a place for heroes. But I'd love to.
yeah,
I'd love to find the perfect mix. You know what I mean? I want. I want a Greyhawk setting, a morally gray world with good aligned characters that have to deal with these morally ambiguous situations and still try to do the right thing. You know, like find a way to struggle with it in your mind and try to come up with the path of least destruction, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree entirely. I think this podcast here is going to be kind of our journey through a lot of different game systems, trying to find exactly what we want to find.
I can promise you, I guarantee you, this podcast is probably going to lead to building your own. You know, we're gonna end up building something out of it because there's never one that has the pieces that we all
That has
like.
all of it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll turn on. Okay, let's make a prediction. Let's give it 30 years. 30 years from now, when this podcast has become famous, we will put out our own TTRPG on Kickstarter / Patreon, whatever it is. Mark my words. Mark my words.
Can we lower that to like 15? Because I'll be 73. You know what I mean? Like 30 years from now. I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Oh, that's well. How old will I be? I said 30. Okay, yeah, I'll be. Oh man, I'll be up there too. I think I'll be fine. It's okay. I'll take over the intellectual creativity for you.
Yeah, please, because my intellectual will probably be gone by then. Yeah, I'll probably still be running games.
Hopefully, that'll be the dream. We can still run as many games as you want. Let's start wrapping this up. Even though I'm really enjoying this conversation, but let's do our final thoughts on Daggerheart. And I'm posing this last question to you.
Okay.
As clickbaity as I can. Is Daggerheart the next, or is it going to be the D&D Slayer?
Nowhere near. It's going to have a very dedicated fan base that keeps it alive for the foreseeable future, and it will never kind of like disappear. It will never kind of like wane, but I think it's pretty much gonna level off. This is like the most we're gonna hear about it, and this is the amount of fans that are now. There's gonna be a few more that come, and there's gonna be newer editions, and it'll get hype again. But
I mean, the new book is coming out soon.
Yeah, but I it's not gonna be a D&D killer, but it's gonna be like Pathfinder. It's gonna have a nice dedicated fan base, and probably gonna fight Pathfinder for that second or third place slot all the time.
Yeah.
Unless
I'd have to agree.
Unless D&D kills itself, which can happen.
Which, at the rate we're going on right now, is not an unlikely scenario. Wizards has to figure something out with what they're doing.
6th edition. They already figured it out. 6th edition.
Yeah, but we'll see how that looks. I don't know.
If it's in a book, it's
If it's in a book, yeah, I think they're trying to go into a more video gamey type of a direction, which not
didn't
to
learn
sidetrack too much. I think it's more so like they're trying to appeal to a more general audience as opposed to what we are, which is like the hobby. I don't want to sound like an elitist, but the hobbyists who love TTRPGs are not going to be happy when you video gamify your tabletop game. It's what it was.
What I think they should do, honestly, what I think before we end all this is my idea. I think they have the ability and the money to branch off into different types of D&D. They can sell it all. You can have your OSC version with a team that makes that content and supports that, and you could put that on a platform. You could have your, whatever version for this. You could have your pulp version. You could have different genres or 3 different sets of genres that you put out individually, all at the same time, and keep all of your fans happy. But you can't put it all in one book, like they're trying to do with the player. They can't have a core and make everybody happy.
I think what you just said is a genius idea. I think you should call them up and actually tell them that, because no joke, I think that's a great direction to go into. I will say I love this game. This game is great. I'm probably going to start running it for like in substitution of my D&D games. I am going to substitute D&D for Daggerheart. Part of it is also I'm too familiar with D&D at this point. I'm kind of like tired of it. I want something new, something fresh. They're coming out with a new book soon, new classes, 130 plus adversaries. I think that's great. I think there's a huge community of third-party creators out there trying to put something out that's really good. And that's unique, and it's the community itself. It has its issues, but I think at the same time they're building something very fun with Daggerheart, like with all the third party created stuff that's out there.
Yes.
Not to say that D&D isn't, right? So that this goes kind of to my question. Is Daggerheart the D&D killer? I'd have to agree with you. It isn't. I think D&D is too large. It's too huge. It's ginormous. And every day, even though Daggerheart is getting a bunch of third-party stuff put out there, campaign frames, adversaries, everything, yada, 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 D&D also has a lot of that in a surplus amount. There was one of the most highly backed, I think, Kickstarter campaigns came out recently, Heliana and Ryoko's Guide to Mythozoology by Loot Tavern, which I think is like a 10-book thing on D&D where they introduce a new class, a bunch of new subclasses, a bunch of creatures, like a whole thing. And it's huge, and it's very well designed, beautiful art, and I got massively funded in Kickstarter. That's just never going to go away. Yeah. Maybe, mainstream D&D by Wizards of the Coast, like the core rule books, all the core stuff that they're putting out, that might lose traction. I think the fan base is just going to keep it alive. And that's true for a lot of things. So that's my 2 cents. I think Daggerheart's great. I think if you want to play as a very strong superhero in a fantasy world, this is the book for you, and this is the adventure. I bought this. I don't usually buy books. I bought this book, and I do not regret it.
Me
buy the book. It's beautiful. It's a great book. The art is amazing, and I'll probably buy the new set as well. When that set comes out, I don't know about you, but we're probably gonna play.
I'm
a few
definitely
games
buying Hope and Fear. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then we're gonna review it on this podcast as well when
absolutely.
It comes out.
Absolutely, especially with the Warlock, dude. My all-time favorite class.
We're big Warlock fans, and
dude, narratively, that's like the coolest thing to me. I've made a pact with this powerful being that's so much story food for the DM to work with. I love when people play Warlocks in my campaign. I got an automatic go-to for something to use from their backstory.
Yeah. But let's not go too much over time.
Yeah.
Let's do the outro, not the outro. So what's next on the menu for us? I don't know about you, Kayden, but at least for me, on the next oops, a little slip up there. On the next podcast, I said I will be playing a game. I will be running a game of Mothership. And I will be reviewing Mothership on the next podcast, as well as that one small one shot that I bought.
And
what about you?
For what I'm bringing up is something we already did together. We're going to review Vagabond. We played a little one shot with Vagabond, and I'm going to talk about how that went and talk about what I do like and dislike about the system, which I like a lot. So.
Okay, nice. Well, until next time, see you guys on the next episode of our podcast.
All right.